Every revolution begins somewhere. Not inside a royal palace, not in the chambers of powerful kings. Sometimes it begins in a place so small the rest of the world barely knows it exists. This is one of those places. Meet Lexington, a farming village, fewer than 800 people. No great army, no grand fortress, no famous battlefield. Just ordinary families, living ordinary lives. Most mornings here looked exactly the same. Farmers worked the fields. The blacksmith lit his forge. Children hurried through the streets. Everyone knew everyone. If you had passed through Lexington in the spring of 1775, you probably would have remembered almost nothing. And that's exactly what makes this story remarkable. Because history doesn't always choose the biggest city. Sometimes it chooses the place standing in the way. Lexington wasn't famous. Most maps barely marked it, but geography didn't care. One road connected Boston to Concord, and that road passed straight through Lexington. If British soldiers wanted to reach Concord, they had only one practical route, this one. Within days, nearly 700 British regulars would march down this road. Waiting for them would be ordinary farmers, blacksmiths, shopkeepers, men who had never expected to stand against the most powerful empire on earth. And before that morning was over, this forgotten village would become the place where the British Empire first realized America would not be so easy to control. To understand why Lexington mattered, you first have to understand who it was standing against. Because Britain wasn't just another country. It was the most powerful empire on earth. Its navy ruled the oceans. Its merchants controlled global trade. Its armies had defeated rival after rival. People even had a saying, "The sun never sets on the British Empire." Wherever daylight reached, it touched British land. To millions, the empire looked unstoppable. No one imagined that a farming village in Massachusetts could ever become the place where that confidence first began to crack. Then came a war, one that changed everything. The French and Indian War. Britain won. The empire became even bigger, but victory came with a price. 8 years of fighting had buried Britain in debt. The government needed money, a lot of it. So officials looked across the Atlantic at 13 colonies growing richer every year. To London, the solution seemed obvious. America should help pay the bill. From London's point of view, the decision made perfect sense. British soldiers had defended the colonies. British ships protected colonial trade. So why shouldn't the colonies help cover the cost? But 3,000 miles away, people saw a completely different story. Many colonists believed they had already paid. Their sons had fought. Their businesses had struggled. Their communities had sacrificed. Neither side believed it was being unreasonable, and that's exactly what made the situation so dangerous. The first new tax arrived, brief beat. Then another, then another. On paper, they looked like ordinary laws, but to many colonists, they meant something much bigger. This wasn't only about money anymore. It was about a simple question: who had the right to govern people who had no voice in Parliament? That question spread from tavern to tavern, from town to town, until it reached one quiet village called Lexington. At first, the taxes weren't enough to start a revolution. Most people didn't wake up one morning ready to fight the British Empire. They simply wanted to be heard. But one question refused to go away. If Parliament could tax people who had no representatives, What else could it do? That question spread faster than any official proclamation, and once ordinary people started asking it, there was no easy way to silence them. There was no internet, no radio, no telephones, but ideas still traveled. Newspapers carried them, letters carried them, travelers carried them, and taverns became something more than places to eat and drink. They became newsrooms, debate halls, and sometimes the birthplace of rebellion. One conversation inspired another. One town inspired the next. Before long, people across the colonies were asking the same dangerous questions. Lexington wasn't filled with professional politicians. It was filled with ordinary people. Farmers, carpenters, blacksmiths, shopkeepers, neighbors. They weren't planning to overthrow an empire. Not yet. They were trying to protect something much simpler, their right to decide their own future. Night after night, the meetings grew larger, the conversations grew louder, and trust in distant rulers grew weaker. Among the men leaving those meetings was someone history would soon remember. Captain John Parker, a farmer, a veteran of the French and Indian War, a husband, a father. He wasn't searching for fame. He wasn't dreaming of revolution. He simply hoped his family could live in peace. But history rarely asks whether ordinary people are ready. Sometimes it chooses them anyway. While Lexington slept, British leaders were making their move. General Thomas Gage had received clear orders from London. The growing resistance had to be stopped. His plan seemed simple: send hundreds of British soldiers to Concord, seize the colonial weapons stored there, arrest key patriot leaders if the opportunity appeared. Move quickly, move quietly, end the rebellion before it truly began. But there was one problem. Secrets rarely stay secret. Word spread almost immediately. Patriot spies had been watching British movements for days. Now they knew the soldiers were coming. Messengers rode through the night, knocking on doors, crossing rivers, racing through forests. Every mile mattered, every minute mattered, because if Lexington wasn't ready, everything could be over before sunrise. Captain John Parker had heard the rumors before, but tonight the rumors became real. The British were marching. He didn't call for revenge. He didn't call for war. He simply called his neighbors together. Farmers, blacksmiths, carpenters, shopkeepers, ordinary men, preparing to stand together, not because they wanted a fight, but because they believed someone had to stand. In just a few moments, two groups of ordinary men would face each other. Neither side truly wanted war. Neither side planned to change the world. And yet, within minutes, a single gunshot would echo far beyond this quiet town. History would remember it as the shot heard around the world. But one question still remains: who fired first?